guys, it's your boy Luke here for our prize picks targets for round 3 of the Genesis Invitational. Here in this quick video, we're going to cover my top 5 props for the single round slate to help you guys build some of your cards for tomorrow. Of course, if you're looking for some of the higher ROI plays, some of those 12.5x parlays, you might have to try and sneak in a few unders. But for tomorrow, I'm taking a lot of overs on the slate. So we'll go ahead and hop into why that's the case when we talk about some of the stats later on. But in general, a lot of soft lines out there that I definitely want to try and attack. And to go ahead and review round 2 real quickly, it was a little bit different than we expected. I mean, I definitely expected it to play a lot more difficult. A lot of the industry did as well, whether you were looking at Showdown, Prize Picks, of course. Every content creator out there was right on line with me. We thought it was going to play difficult, get firm and fast. I mean, Tiger Woods was quoted as saying that should be the case earlier in the week, and that just frankly wasn't the case today. We saw Joaquin Niemann shot 8 under, plenty of other ceiling rounds towards 5-6 under par, and tomorrow something's got to give, right? Because they promised us these difficult conditions. There hasn't been any more moisture on this golf course since Tuesday, so it has had time to build out, get a little bit more firm and fast. And tomorrow, if they pick the right pin locations, going to be very devilish for these players. So I expect a little bit of a different dynamic for tomorrow, but in the morning, when it's a little bit softer, we're also dealing with little to no wind. I think it's still going to be gettable. So it's definitely going to matter the tee time for these players, whether they're teeing off earlier or later on in the afternoon, because the guys that are teeing off in the morning are certainly going to have an advantage. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop right on into it. First off, with a review of the stats for tomorrow, and then of course our prize picks targets. Okay guys, on the screen you can see the weather for tomorrow. This is on weather.com, which for my liking is probably the most consistent weather source out there. You can see in the morning 3 to 4 mile an hour wind expected, right around 8-9 a.m. when the first guys will be teeing off. Going to be perfect conditions. A little bit warmer than what we had over the last few days as well, which means that the ball will be flying farther. Players will be able to take advantage of those wet, soft conditions and take this place low. So like I said before, that is why I want to target some of these guys that are starting early in the day, that are perhaps closer to even or just 1 under par, and that need to go out there and make a mark on moving day. So we'll see that when we get into the targets. Towards the afternoon, it does ramp up a little bit more. It gets up to right around 6 to 7 miles an hour of sustained winds, which means we should expect anywhere between 10 to maybe 15 miles an hour of wind gusts. Now, I will say at AccuWeather.com, another weather source that I do use from time to time, it does say that there's going to be 17 to 25 mile an hour wind gusts at the Pacific Palisades. So kind of got to pick and choose your sources here. I did look at a third source over there on Windfinder, and it had it closer to the 7 to 8 miles an hour that we had here at weather.com. So 2 of 3 majority winds there. We're going to expect it to be relatively benign in the afternoon, but certainly an advantage for the guys that are getting out there early, those wet, receptive greens, and of course with less wind than what we're going to have in the afternoon. In terms of the live scoring, we saw an easier round, like I said, here in round 2 than what we saw in round 1. It played to over half a stroke under par. In round 1, that was just under par. 5/100ths of a stroke under par, and a lot of these really difficult holes, particularly on the back 9, the middle part of the front 9 as well, didn't play nearly as tough. In fact, some of them actually played under par, and on the back 9 didn't play nearly as difficult. So that notoriously difficult stretch was something that players were able to take advantage of, and a lot of that comes down to pin location. And I went back, looked at some of the pins from round 2, particularly the one here, number 14, was right in the center of the green, and this number 7, which played over par in round 1 but under par in round 2, also was taken from near the edge of the green to also towards the center. So when you have a hole that's only 408 yards, over here this hole is a par 3, it's only 192 yards. That's going to make a massive difference with the scoring. So round 3, I'm expecting them to ramp it up for moving day. Of course, with a little bit more difficult conditions in the afternoon expected, you could see a little bit of carnage. So if you're looking to take some unders on some of these fairways, birdies, or of course green stats, take a look at some of the guys towards the top of the leaderboard. But of course, pick and choose, because there's some of the guys playing the best golf in the field, but they're certainly going to have the worst draw of the bunch. Let's go ahead and touch on some of our favorite props for the week now. And only one birdie or better prop that I really have my eyes on. And first off, it's going to be Mito Pereira. So somebody who is a new guy here on Prize Picks. I talked to the Prize Picks line maker today. He was asking us down in the Discord who we wanted to see here from round 3, and I mentioned Mito Pereira, the other Chilean prodigy that's coming out here, really having a solid start to his career. And I'm glad they put him on the board, and they have him down at 3.5 birdies. And of course, it's not like he's a prolific player, particularly when we compare him to some of the other guys on the board. But one thing that Mito does well is, first off, ball strike the crap out of the ball. He's been a really good putter of late as well. That's why he was one of my value picks for DFS this week, if you guys saw that video. But he also makes a ton of birdies. Sure, he's not the best around the green player. Sure, he mixes it in a ton of bogeys and double bogeys from time to time, but he sure as hell goes out there and scores. So I like him there at 3.5 birdies. I have him projected right now for 4.3 birdies in the round, which makes it a relatively safe pick to take there. Next up, we're going to go over to the greens in regulation number, where first off, we're going to touch on, let's see, Sergio Garcia is the first one on the list. So I have him there at 11 greens in regulation. He's one of the elite iron players in the world. If there's one thing that Sergio Garcia does better than everyone else in the world, it's hit those approach shots. So with not very much penal rough in play this week, most of it is just 1 to 2 inches, essentially baked out as well. So it's not like it has moisture on it. It's going to grab your club. Guys like Sergio Garcia, even if they're missing fairways, should still hit a fair amount of greens, particularly because he's going off a little bit earlier in the day. Hasn't really scored all too well to this point of the golf tournament, has kind of just gone by, squeaked through the cut, that type of thing. Those are the guys I'm going to target because they get those soft conditions, particularly guys that are as elite with the irons as somebody like a Sergio Garcia. So I have him projected to hit 13.1 greens regulation, which is 2.1 higher than his number right here, which again, much like the Mito Pereira number up right there, one of the more comfortable plays I have here on the slate. Next up, Keegan Bradley, who's almost an identical play. I mean, at the same number there at 11 greens in regulation, but an elite iron player. Doesn't really matter where he's hitting it off the tee. He hasn't been particularly accurate off the tee to this point in the golf tournament. But with great lies, as long as he's not putting himself against the lip of a bunker or something ridiculous, should hit pretty much almost every single green in regulation. The real issue with Keegan Bradley is the putter. He's not typically somebody who makes a ton of putts. So that's why I'm not taking him for the birdies or better, even though he is towards the bottom of the board, like somebody like a Sergio Garcia or even a Mito Pereira. I just can't trust the putter as much as some of these other guys, particularly Mito Pereira, who's been pretty solid with the putter to this point of his career. So I like the greens in regulation number a little bit more there, and somebody that I'm mixing in that category. And next up, we're going to have the Will Zalatoris over on greens in regulation. He's up there at 11.5, which of course you'd wish to get that push there at 11. Makes you feel a little bit better about the line, but he's a much better iron player than these two. I mean, they're elite iron players, they're solid players, but Will Zalatoris is an elite iron player among elite iron players. I mean, when this guy is on hitting on all cylinders, he's hitting 15 to 16 plus greens in regulation per round. And much like these other two players, he is relatively inaccurate off the tee, but he doesn't see nearly the same effect at this golf course. It's one of the lowest penalties they have per shot per the rough here at Riviera Country Club. It's just 5/100ths of a penalty per shot, whereas other golf courses like Wingfoot Country Club, it was over half a stroke penalty per shot. I mean, that's how penal the rough was there. And of course, that's a little bit of an extreme versus another extreme here at just 5/100ths of a penalty per shot. But really like Will Zalatoris under those type of conditions. I have him projected for over 13 greens in regulation as well, up there at 13.4, making it a prop I like a whole lot. And now lastly, the last prop that I'm taking, not looking at the fairways, because even though they are hard to hit, I mean, if you take a look at some of the numbers over here, they're fair, right? They're at 7.5, 8 at the very most. There's no one up there at 9 or 10 fairways because they're hard to hit here at Riviera Country Club. A little bit more fair is the greens in regulation, which for Viktor Hovland, even up here at 12 greens in regulation, I like. He's an elite iron player, much like a Will Zalatoris. He's an elite iron player among elite iron players. So he's somebody I have projected for nearly 14 greens in regulation, 13.9 actually, which is almost a whole 2 higher than his projection. And again, even though it's a little bit more aggressive than some of these other players, I think it's well warranted. He's not going to see any type of penalty for some of his wild drives, which we have seen to this point of the week, but with his distance control, with that shots gained approach, has looked like himself. The putter was also really good in round 2, so that's why we saw him make so many birdies. But that's not something that we can count on from a Viktor Hovland. So as much as the birdies are better, I believe he's at 4.5 here for the slate. 4.5. I was considering taking the over because he had more than that today. He's going to put himself in a lot of positions to score. I don't know if we can count on the putter to cash in enough. So I'm more willing to go to this number over here at 12 greens of regulation because all he has to do is put himself in position. Doesn't necessarily have to cash in. Now I want to touch on the new category here. That's going to be hole 11 shots, and I'm excited for it. It's not something that I wanted to use in a core picks because, again, it's only one hole long. A lot of variance, a lot can happen on one hole. But if you're looking to have some fun, maybe add in a few extra cards, take some of the bombers on hole number 11. It is a par 5. If we go over here to the live predictive model, you'll see hole number 11, par 5. It has a 43% birdie rate, which means a little bit less than half of the field is going to make birdie there. And they have the lines for all these guys at 4.5, right? Yeah, even the guys at the bottom are all at 4.5, which means most of the guys are going to hit the over, right? So if you're looking to take a pure EV play, take the overs, but we know you guys are going to be wanting to take the unders. Guys are going to birdie the par 5. Key candidates for me would be the bombers, guys like a Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, Scotty Scheffler, even a guy like Patrick Cantlay that gets it out there, Victor Hovland, John Rahm. Those are the type of guys I would take the under there for. The over is, again, even though more people are going to hit the over than under, it's not a really sexy pick. And these are all the best players in the field. So it's not like there's any stinkers like a Mito Pereira, who I love, right? He's a great player. He's in the top 70 to 100 in the world. These are all top 25 players in the world. So it's really hard to fade any of them, especially on a par 5 where 40% of the field is making birdie. But I wanted to go ahead and show that out there because it is a cool new category that they have here on the site. And something that I'm surely going to be playing for a little bit of fun tomorrow. That is all I've got for the round 3 prize picks targets. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments before you go on and get on out of here what your favorite prop on the board is, whether it's something that I mentioned or something completely off of my radar. Would love to hear from you guys, so make sure you go ahead and do that before you get out of here. And as always, really appreciate all of your support here. I appreciate you guys coming by, supporting the channel, subscribing, liking the video, as you guys are always so good about doing. We're going to have even more prize picks content coming throughout the week. Of course, for the Sunday round tomorrow, for all of the sweats up top, who's going to go out and win that golf tournament, we'll have you guys covered. And of course, for next week at the Honda Classic, which I'll actually be at in person, be able to give you guys a little bit of a report from the grounds. Perhaps I'll take videos, show you guys what the conditions are looking like towards the end of the day, to perhaps get an idea of what to expect for tomorrow. For my course breakdown, I will be on site early in the week on Wednesday to do a little bit of snoop work as well. So if you're looking for insight into the Honda Classic from the field itself, look forward to that as well. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that going forward. Like the video if you haven't already. Good luck with all of your prize picks targets, and let's get this cash, guys.